Alright, well, I don't expect anyone to know this about me, but I am biracial. I'm half Indian and I'm half white. Not that that's very important to me. I don't really identify as either of those, I kind of just identify as a human being. But I've learned recently that that is a very flawed way of thinking. According to people like Buzzfeed, it's very good if your identity is really wrapped up in the circumstances you were born in and, more importantly, the ethnicity you were born into. Now, seeing as I don't really identify as either of those two ethnicities, I think it's best if I take Buzzfeed's very own privilege quiz and I find out exactly where I fall. First, of course, we need some points of reference. Now, Buzzfeed made a video with their own employees where they all took the exact same privilege quiz and they were given a numerical score, 0 being the least privileged person in the world, and then 100 being the most privileged person in the world. Let's jump straight ahead to the results so we don't have to suffer through the entire video together. So with the highest score out of all of them is Ned.
I hope to get 100% because I love doing well in school, because I was raised in an environment which valued learning.
From what I gathered from the video, Ned is just the human incarnation of white guilt. Look at his face. He's so close to being actually attractive, but then he's kind of balding and he's got a sort of stupid looking nose. And I feel like that just pushes him over the edge from being a happy, successful, handsome guy to being this pathetic loser who comes and cries on fucking BuzzFeed about how privileged he is.
Yeah, privilege.
He's very ashamed of how hard his parents worked to give him a good life.
I am a straight white guy, went to an Ivy League school, both parents have graduate degrees.
And you wear polo tees?
I feel super privileged, and I don't know how to talk about it, which is why I'm forcing myself to be in this video.
You can also see that he is actually in pain every time that he has to click yes to any one of the privilege questions.
I have lied about my sexuality, I have had to come out, and I have doubted my parents' acceptance of my sexuality, so...
I fortunately have not had to do that. It's a lot of check marks.
That's not to say that he's without his good qualities. Ned's got a couple of great zingers in there that make the video completely worth watching.
Do you think Donald Trump got like 1,000% on this?
Next up is Allie. Allie is a moderately attractive middle-class white girl, so she got 65. Next up is Kane. Kane is Asian, so that probably really sucked for him. That's despite the fact that Asian people are statistically proven to run circles around white people in terms of success. Up next is Nikki. Nikki is Asian, but she's also a woman and she is a homosexual. So I can only assume that her life was a living hell. We have a pretty sharp drop-off after that. We've got Rocco and Shane. I think that one or both of them is transgender. They keep saying of trans experience, which I don't really know what that means at all. Come on, if I'm supposed to discriminate against you, I gotta know what I'm discriminating against. Shane is part Native American, something that absolutely nobody would be able to tell unless he said it at the beginning of the video.
I'm white, but I'm also Native American. I'm a man, but I'm also gay. I'm a Christian, but I'm also poor.
And for one reason or another, he believes he has to lie about his ethnicity because he thinks that being 1/32nd Cherokee is gonna bar him from getting some jobs. Coming in second to last place is Kuwilileni. Kuwilileni lost big in the privilege games. She scored only a 27, which is dreadfully low. She probably attributes this to being born black, which maybe it is, and maybe it's also the disgusting dreadlocks or all of the ridiculous piercings. One way or another, she's scored a pretty terrifically low score. And coming in dead last place with a 23, we have Rain. With such a low score, she can blame 77 individual things on her being unhappy later in her life. Now it's time for me to take the quiz myself. As you can probably guess, there are 100 different questions for this, and I have no intention of making you suffer through seeing all of them, so I'll just show you the highlights, the most interesting little tidbits of my privilege or unprivilege, and show you my score at the end, see where I stack up. Personally, I think that I'm going to score somewhere in between Ned and Kane, because Kane is an Asian, but Ned is white. Okay, let's get started. Check off all the statements that apply to you. Like I said before, I don't know if I identify as being white or being brown, so since I'm conflicted, I think that that's reason enough to just not click the I am white. I know I don't look very brown, but when a person with my complexion and my hair is in a room with a bunch of pasty English people, then I pretty much stand out. Like I said before, I've lived in England, and literally countless times I've been bullied for having an American accent. I did one time have a friend who told me that I was the second most attractive brown person that he knew, so I'm just gonna say that that counts. I've never been called a racial slur. I'll take your pick. Sand nigger, camel jockey, Indo nigger, curry nigger. Really just any kind of word that has anything to do with Indians followed by nigger, and that's me. There are times when I doubt that my parents believe I'm heterosexual, but I don't think that really counts. Yes, I've been called a fag. Every guy has been called a fag. If you've ever gone to middle school, you've been called a fag. Yes, I've been called a fairy. In fact, I've been called pretty much every homosexual slur you can possibly think of. You know, it's middle school. Here's one. I've never lied about my sexuality. Actually, telling girls that you're gay, especially if you're really, really not interested in them and they really are into you, that can be a really great get out of jail free card. And it's a lot less hurtful than just telling them, I think you're ugly. Let's just entertain this fantasy that any girl would ever want to be seen in public with me. I think that my feelings about PDA would be the least of my concerns. Do I make more money than my professional counterparts of a different gender? Well, that's hard to say, considering that there are like 80 different genders?
There are 3 genders, 4 genders, even 5.
I mean, what's the wage gap between all of those genders? I don't really know what to say, so I'm just not gonna click. Never felt unsafe because of my gender. Well, let me see. I'm 100% more likely to be drafted into the military and die at war than any woman, so no, I think I do feel unsafe about my gender. I have never felt poor. Well, you know, there are those instances like when you go to Cape Cod with your family and you're the only family that doesn't have a boat and it's just kind of like, we're so poor, so I felt poor. I graduated high school. Oh, of course, right, I forgot about not being a dipshit and failing out of high school privilege. Of course, yeah, the not being a stupid fucking idiot privilege. How could I have forgotten about that? Who has never had a roommate? How can you go through your entire youth and never have a roommate? That's just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Something to think about, pretty much every illegal immigrant in the United States has traveled internationally. So is that even really a privilege thing at all? I've never been depressed. Dude, I'm always fucking depressed. Again, I bring you back to middle school for this specific one. If you've ever been to middle school and you were a 4-foot tall kid and you were about 70 pounds, you were probably fucking bullied. I feel privileged because of the identities I was born with. Well, that's where you're wrong. I'm privileged because my parents worked very hard and they put me in a situation to have a good life. I'm not even that privileged because of that. I'm privileged because I'm born in a free country. I'm privileged because I'm born in a country where I have running water. Actually, you know what? I'm privileged because I was born in a country where I was able to get access to the internet and take this stupid fucking quiz. Alright, it all comes down to this. Time to check my privilege. Well, 68 out of 100. And it looks like my prediction was pretty much almost 100% accurate. It was my guess that I would come somewhere in between Ned and Kane. And with a 68, I'm almost like smack dab right in the middle of the two of those guys. I don't really know what to think about myself now. I'm not as privileged as that pussy Ned, but at the same time, I'm more privileged than Kane, and he's an Asian, and you know, they're doing all right. It'd be really nice if you guys could tell me which box I'm supposed to close myself into, because, you know, later on in my life, things might not go so great, I might not be so happy, so it'd be really good if I had a few concrete and clear things that I could really blame all my problems on.
Fuck! Good boy.